Hey Yeti Club, Halloween is on its way and you know that means Halloween Horror Nights is in full swing at Universal Studios. And today I'm going to give you my take on which of Universal's haunted houses and scare zones are the best of the best. This is actually my very first year getting to go to Halloween Horror Nights, so I went in with a completely blank slate. Let's start off with the scare zones. Coming in last place for me is the Zombieland Double Tap Zone. I know it's based on the movie, but unless you're a huge fan of the movies, this zone probably won't do much for you. It's basically just people stumbling around with a little makeup on their faces with very minimal atmosphere around it. Half the time you're in this zone, you won't even really notice. No offense to Zombieland, but this one simply falls short for me. In at number 4, I have the Anarcade. This one sets the tone for the whole night when you first enter the park. It's an 80s style arcade with scare actors that look kinda like laser tag ninjas. There's nothing particularly scary at all about this zone, but the neon mixed with the fog does look pretty cool. And it's a nice little introduction to the overall 80s inspiration for this year's Horror Nights. At number 3 for me is the Vanity Ball Zone. This one is all about plastic surgeries gone wrong. When it's in full swing, the zone is pretty creepy and kind of gives me the same vibe as the cult classic movie Repo the Genetic Opera, but this zone could really use some more atmosphere theming to boost it up a bit. In second place is Rob Zombie's Hellbilly Deluxe Zone, which is supposed to represent Rob Zombie's music come to life. I guess it pulls that off, with a mix of scare actors, somewhat exotic dancers, and random set pieces. This one scores as high as it does for me simply because they do have an actual atmosphere built around it. But in first place, miles ahead of the competition, is Vikings Undead. The Undead Vikings are the best and scariest characters of all the zones. The atmosphere is by far the creepiest and most complete of all the zones, and this one really just has the best concept in general. It was an incredibly easy decision to give Vikings Undead the crown for the scare zones. Well done to Universal for this one. Now on to the main attractions, the haunted houses. But first, this is a great time to remind you that all of this is simply my personal opinion. You most likely won't agree with my exact rankings, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Tell me your favorite houses and zones, what you love, and even what you hate about this year's Horror Nights. Alright, at number 10 for houses, coming in dead last is unfortunately Stranger Things. I am a fan of the show, so I had high hopes for this house. Maybe that bar was set too high and it ended up hurting my perception, but this one just lacked on all accounts for me. Too many mannequins as characters, pretty limited interaction with the characters you do know and love, settings that didn't really make it feel like you were in the show like the other IP-based houses did, and no really solid scares. I really wanted to like this one a lot, but it just didn't happen. At number 9 is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. The whole scary clown thing just doesn't do much for me. It's a bit like the chainsaws in the scare zones. It's like the oldest, most cliched trick in the book. This one is based off a movie, and I have seen the movie, which is good because if you haven't seen this movie, then this house is probably much more confusing than scary. Even though this is at number 9, that doesn't mean it's bad. It's still really fun and has some great moments from the movie. It's just towards the bottom of the list for me. Number 8 is the Ghostbusters house. This one is lower for me because I'm just not that big of a fan of Ghostbusters, but even then I can appreciate this house and know it has some great built-in stuff from the movie. So if you're a real Ghostbusters fan, this one will probably rate much higher for you. Coming in at number 7, Depths of Fear. Although the main monsters in this one look a tiny bit too goofy for me, almost like a villain from Power Rangers, I really enjoyed the setting and I like how unique the premise is. Number 6, The House of a Thousand Corpses. I have not seen this movie, but this is how you make a house scary enough and entertaining enough to be a great experience for people regardless of if they've seen the movie or not. Without knowing the story, it was a touch hard to follow, but that didn't really detract at all from the overall experience. There was a ton going on with a great setting and plenty of real deal scares. At number 5 is Graveyard Games. I was admittedly skeptical of this house at first just because of how basic and cliche the setting sounds, but they really pulled it off well and still made it interesting and legitimately scary and entertaining. The little story they added on to it was honestly unnecessary to me. Kinda seems like hello fellow children, we use the internet, see we are young and hip type of thing going on, but once you're inside it doesn't really make any difference and the setting is plenty impressive on its own without that story. If I had to rate all the houses just based on their names, this would have ranked towards the bottom, so very well done and great execution to give the rank this high. At number 4 is Us. This house only has 1 or 2 big scare moments, but the entire thing does such an amazing job of keeping you totally on edge the whole time. It also does the best job of taking you inside of a movie out of all the movie-based houses. Even without the scares, it would still be a fun walkthrough just because of the setting if you've seen the movie. Plus, the room at the end with all of the others on either side of you is one of the best scare scenes in all of Horror Nights. Before we get to the top 3, I want to give a quick shout out to the live show at Halloween Horror Nights, Academy of Villains Altered States. I had no clue what to expect going into this, but it's an amazing show even if you don't really care about dance. I highly recommend seeing the show during your Horror Nights visit. Alright, we're getting onto the podium here. At number 3 is Nightingale's Blood Pit. The premise of this one is absolutely amazing and so perfectly creepy. The Nightingales are such spectacular monsters and the setting is super well done. This is also the house that got me the most as far as the sheer amount of effective scares. I do not scare easily at all in haunted houses, and this one got me multiple times. It was super hard for me to decide between the top 3 houses. This easily could have been number 1, fantastic house. In second place we have Yeti, Terror of the Yukon. Another really original idea that I absolutely loved. Not many people are thinking Canada when they think horror, but this one pulled it off spectacularly. I am also a bit biased about Yetis, which should come as no surprise considering the name of my channel. The setting in this house is magnificently done, and it has the single best practical effect in my opinion, which is the scene where a Yeti puts their claw right through a poor Canadian's torso. The Yetis themselves are super well done, and I just can't get enough of this house. And that leaves, at number 1, taking the gold medal, Universal Monsters. Now I simply love the classic monsters. This is the kind of stuff that got me into horror in the first place, and this house gives me everything I could ask for. All of the great classic monsters, some you may have even forgotten about, all in perfectly done settings. This one's a masterpiece for classic horror fans like myself. So there is my take on this year's Halloween Horror Nights, and like I said, I want to know what you think about all the houses and scare zones, so let me know. Thanks for watching, and until next time, voice the colors.